Life is full of strange philosophical questions, and one such questions, one that vexates gamers in particular, is what was Mayfair Games doing before Settlers? Was there a Mayfair Games to start with? Yes, there was, and this is the stuff that they were publishing. Lone Wolf and Cub Game. Today we talk about a game based on the classic manga, one that I enjoyed back in the day, and I enjoyed it very much. Again, it has been a while since I read it, but the fond memories are still there. Great manga, and I was happy to see that there was a game about it. I had no idea until I discovered it by chance, in the same way that I discover half of the games that I purchased. That is, I go on eBay looking for a game that I want, I place a bid on the game that I want, and then I think, wait, but if the same seller has other games that I like, then I could buy them and save on shipping. Because buying more games is exactly what you should do when you want to save money. It makes perfect sense. Don't contradict me or else I cry. So I bet on this game and I don't remember what it is, and I go to see the other games and I see that they have Lone Wolf and Cub, the game, and learn about it. I'm excited for just a couple of bucks, and I think, whatever, I'll place a bet on this one too. Of course, I did not get the main game, but I got this game. But I wasn't unhappy about it because the theme I like very much. It turned out I discovered that it was a solitaire game. The rating on Board Game Geek was really low. But then I thought, it's a solitaire game, so if I play it by myself, at least I'm not dragging other people into like a disappointing experience. It just stays with me fine. But most important, I had discovered that it was a paragraph-based game. Paragraph-based games I like. They mean narrative, they mean story, they mean theme, they mean Chrome. All the stuff that I like. Story-oriented games, my favorite ones. So I was, even though I got it by chance and through a comedy of errors and logical fallacies, I was happy to get it. Lone Wolf and Cub Game. A game, mainly a solitaire game with a two-player option where you play the role, the protagonist of the manga, the comic book. You travel around feudal Japan seeking to gain honor, reputation, seeking to pursue your vengeance, to punish the culprits that have ruined your life, and also you're looking for enlightenment and spiritual improvement. Let me show you how the game works. This is the board of the game. As you can see, it is very good looking. So atmospheric, so evocative, excellent. The game piece representing you, representing Lone Wolf, not as beautiful and evocative, just a depressing generic pawn. As you can see, the map, the locations on the map are simply indicated by letters, and you will move from letter to letter. The different letters indicate different types of terrain. So you have plains, river, forest, and so on and so forth. The point of the game is to improve your stats, and that in game terms represent you gaining honor, progressing in your quest for vengeance, and reaching enlightenment, which is in this case is represented by a loss or a decrease in self. So you're trying to gain 9 points of reputation total, 9 points of vengeance, and go down to 6 points, starting from 9 according to this chart here, or from 12 according to the rulebook. Yes, you choose one. This is only one of the many, so many inconsistencies and problems in the rules and the components. You also create your character. Well, that's you. Look at you. Look how nice and heroic you look. You also create your character by distributing points around several characteristics that you have. This is very fighting fantasy. Lone Wolf, the other Lone Wolf, not Lone Wolf and Cub, but Lone Wolf, the protagonist of the game books by Joe Dever. It is very game booky that you have a basic number of points for these stats here, and you add further points to determine your total in strength and agility, knowledge, intuition, combat, and life points. So you have 16 points that you add to your base number of who knows what. Look at this. Here we are at the end of page 6, and it's telling us how it works, that, you have a character sheet and stuff like that. Then we go to page 7. You see that this is a full stop, right? Look how page 7 starts. Of strength, ability, etc., etc. And reading this, I guess that actually the section that they completely omitted is the section that tells you what your base number is, base number to which you should add 16 points. Another big loophole, another big hole in the system. I gave myself a starting 4 points, and then I added for each stats, and then I added those 16. Is that right? Is that wrong? I have no idea whatsoever, but that's how we played it. Now, each turn you will get to move, then you resolve an encounter, and you continue like this until either you achieve your goal of changing your stats until they are at the level that is required to win the game, or until you lose the game by being dead, by being killed by events. Now, what I really like about this game was so promising when it comes to Naughty games, because it has 2 generators of events, 2 engines to generate events. One is the Book of 1,000 Paths, which has 94 sections. Yeah, not quite 1,000, but there are many more paths, sections, events in this deck of cards here. What I like is that some of these cards represent events. You simply read and resolve the situation, but then some of these events also link to sections in the book. So you would jump from card to section in the book, sometimes from section in the book to section in the book. So you have some mini branching trees of options that may start in a card, continue in the book for several paragraphs. It's really nice. It's a nice, interesting variant of the choose your own adventure game book fighting fantasy idea, with an interesting interconnection between the paragraph book, which of course is more structured and doesn't change much, and a deck of cards that offers so much more variability. You won't be able to encounter all cards each time, etc., etc. At least theoretically, because in truth there are many cards, many copies of the same card. For example, you have the Meditate card that has several copies of these, and when you find one, you roll a d10, then tells you the sections where you go. But all Meditate will send you to section 15, 33, or 70. A much lengthier box, of course, would have been a bigger investment. It would have been much more exciting because you wouldn't be able to have multiple effects. So Meditate today may not be the same as meditating tomorrow, may lead to different sections, different situations. And these events will indicate places that you visit, people that you have to fight, resources that you encounter, rumors that will send you to sections, and there will be different sections for Rumors 1 and Rumors 2, but there are several copies of Rumors 1 and Rumors 2. So true, in a game you won't go through all of the cards, but the replay value, the amount of variety that is created by the deck is not as high as you would expect because, again, of all the duplicates. Again, it is the idea, roll a die and go to the section. So much potential with this synergy between deck and paragraph book, but not fully exploited. There you also get to fight against enemies. Let's look at a single individual enemy to see how combat would work. Let's look for a Renegade Ronin. They're everywhere when you don't want them, but of course when you're looking for one for exemplification you can't find them. Whatevs. There you go, Renegade Ronin. Now, you have to fight, and usually, of course I got the Ronin, that doesn't allow me to explain what I wanted to explain. Well, the card that describes the event tells you the number of life points that the Ronin has. Remember, you also have life points that you will lose when you get wounded in combat. You recover through game effects. Then the opponents have 4 combat decks labeled A, B, C, D. Most enemies would tell you the deck that they use. For example, this enemy uses deck C or deck D. Of course, here it says draw a combat deck randomly for him to use. Okay, look at that. I drew deck C. these decks have 4 cards that, well, I like this. They have 4 sections on top with different numbers and different areas. As you can see, in truth, each deck has a number in a specific section. You just don't know exactly what number it is. Then these are your own 4 combat cards, and what is neat is that at the beginning of the encounter you choose one of the 4 combat cards representing one of your tactics. Say I wanna do that. Then I take the deck of my opponent, I shuffle it randomly, and I match it with mine. The stat that is my stat that is facing the one stat of the opponent is the one that will be used. So in this case, I'm going to use a 6, and the opponent is going to use a 3. If this had been the case from another deck, then the opponent would have had a 4 against my 6. The problem is that, I'm sure you already see, since all the C decks have the same box, as you can see, the variety is not all that big. Once I become familiar with the decks, I know that the deck C has only this boss activated, then I'm gonna look for the card that has the best number in that position. Deck B has the cards, has the letter. And this other position here, well, let's look at the deck A, has all the letters in the same position. So when it comes to, and as you can see, not much variety there. When it comes to deck A, I'm also gonna look for a card that gives me that advantage there. So combat, so much potential, but we would have needed enemies with different cards, different effects, for example. That would be so cool. Maybe numbers of different colors. And so, for example, if the colors match, there is a special effect that happens, an ability that activates or doesn't activate, an ability of yours. Would have added the complexity, but this is a great idea to resolve combat. Could have been a great idea to give tactical field, even to get to the sense of bluffing. It's so hard to bluff in a solitaire game. But again, imagine you had a deck with more complexity and you see the several things would be more profitable, several course of action may be safer, but other ones a little more dangerous, may have led to more powerful strikes. That would have been great, but as is, it's just very linear and very bland. What happens once I identify the stats that need to be used? I roll a die for my enemy, a die for myself. I add each die to the base number. In this case, I have 8 for me. Oh, and 8 for him. Nope. Oh, look at that. I didn't see correctly. I have 8 for me, and I have 5 for my opponent. I win because I have an higher number. The player, the side with the lowest number, loses a life point. So in this case, the opponent loses a life point. I mark that on a sheet of paper, and I repeat until one of us is dead. Simple, direct, a little too straightforward, and absolutely tedious when you encounter, say, 6 enemies. Then I'm just saying, okay, I'm just going to lose 5 points. And I just kind of like figure out the number of points that I will lose, because it really takes forever. If there's a tie, nothing happens, so you reroll. And when you're going to 6 opponents, I mean, the chance that you as a player die of boredom are higher than the player will die of a fight. There's also another way of fighting. I don't know why there would be two. If you encounter an enemy in the book, because of a fight in the book, you don't have the letter. You have simply a numerical value. Says, well, you have a combat factor of 6. In this case, for whatever reason, instead of using the cards, you look at your combat factor and you use that. So you roll dice and you add your combat factor to yours, their combat factor to theirs, and you resolve just the same. Oh, I talked about the encounter cards, which are these ones. Something that is really neat when you're traveling the landscape and you end your turn, so it's time to resolve an encounter. You do not by default look at these cards. You look at this table here, You look at the column for the terrain in which you are. For example, now I am in plains. Then you roll a d10 and you cross-reference. And yes, the result may be that you get a card, or maybe that you had to turn to a paragraph here. For example, here we turn to paragraph 13 if I'm in the plain and I roll a 2. And you read and result. Again, the problem is that many of these events, and I'm excited, many of these events are not all that dissimilar, more complex, more rewarding, fascinating than these ones. Some are, but the ones that are the best ones are related to special locations that are indicated with letters from A to K. So there I have an F, there I have a G, here I have an E. Here you have the S, which is only a starting position for one of the 2 players if you're playing 2-player. But this really is a solitaire game. The 2-player options will add that simply to have the number 2 on the box and to make it a little more, I don't know, marketable. But it's a solitaire game. When you reach one of these special locations, then again you look at the 1000 Path book, and at the beginning you have an index that tells you the paragraph that corresponds to each. I don't know why they wouldn't simply write the number of the paragraph on the special location, but such is I am location G, which is the temple. Then I go to 58. And yes, these will lead you to slightly more complex, more challenged stories, in some cases at least. So this is the game. Huge potential, huge, oopsie, camera was falling. So this is a game, huge potential, definitely squandered by, I would say, a lack of revision, a lack of editing, many omissions in the rules, inconsistencies, very poor production. Unfortunately, the developer should have put more work in the editing, in the tweaking, in adding something more to make the encounters more interesting, figuring out ways of making combat less repetitive. Because you have this initial option here in combat of choosing a card, which is very obvious after a while which card you should choose, and after that you simply roll and roll and roll and roll and roll. When you have an encounter from here where you simply use your numerical combat value, then you do not even have that choice at the beginning of a card. You simply roll and roll and roll and roll and roll. And in Fighting Fantasy game books, we had that, but at least we had some other choices. Sometimes to use a magic object, sometimes to use a potion, sometimes to use luck. If you play Fighting Fantasy games, you know, Fighting Fantasy books, you know what luck is. Why am I filming this review to start with? This is a game probably you hadn't heard of, and now I'm not exactly recommending that you buy it, but I am recommending that you think about it. Because the potential is so great. I think this is a great idea. I hope that somebody one day develops a game that has the map component and the card component and the book component with variety of cards, variety of effects, variety of tactical options, a much thicker book. Of course, we have paragraph-based games already that have much thicker books with more challenges and more situations. I really like the synergy here, and I think there is a great potential. So my point for making this review is, if you find this game on Amazon or on eBay for like $4, $5, which is what I paid for, I paid $5 for it. Maybe consider it for the collection if you're a big fan of Lone Wolf and Cub, or simply to, if you're a game designer, to be inspired, because I think there are a lot of good ideas that were undercooked, half-baked in here. So I hope that the game sooner or later ends up in the hands of a designer that is not a half-baker but is a gourmand, and that will turn the potential, the nutty potential and the mechanics of this game into something really great. I think there's a potential for a great narrative game here, for a great solitaire, for a great engine to tell stories. It just so happens that this game is not what it could have been. It just so happens that this game is not the great storytelling engine that it could have been.